So today we are going to discuss about how we can optimize code and stop using published variable. Let's see, and let's get started now. So previously we were using like this, for example, observable. Okay, so let's create a class right now. So class, for example, user view model, user view model, and okay, so let's create another struct, user identifiable, and here var id string, id is equal to, and then var name string, and var age integer, and var email string, and address string as well. Now let's see. Okay, and here let's see published var. Okay, so user email, let's give the AIS suggestion as well for email. Let's see email string. Let's say it's not giving the suggestion. Okay, so address, again another, and all right. Okay, so we initiated the array, and let's give the emails as normal John at the rate of example, Jane at the rate of example, and Alice rate of example.com. Okay, so now let's see. Now if let's create another variable, for example published var selected user. Okay, so not needed. For what example can I give? So users, number of user allowed, so number of users allowed, okay, integer 3, and okay, and another is add, and okay, so these things we added as published variable, right? Now let's here state object for, okay, user view model, and now let's see here vstack, and then let's add some text and headline, and then another things list, and list, and in the list let's add okay, so padding, and now let's see. Okay, and let's remove this padding. Okay, so users count 3, And let's add another thing here. Text users allowed, and is user allowed. Okay, and no. Okay, so um function. Okay, so let's not delete any user, and let's just simply let's focus what we wanted to show, right? Okay, it's not needed as well. So let's see. So here what we did is state object var user view model, right? So let's add another thing here, vstack, and here alignment dot leading, and let's see vstack, and then here also dot leading and dot padding. All right, so okay, so basically the view model we are calling like this, and we have to write published like this, and here we created a state object of this observable object, right? Now what about if we minimize the code a little bit more, because SwiftUI has a very nice thing. Let's show you here. For example, here we can just add observable, and here let's remove this, and what we need to do here, we need to do is state. Okay, so before changing this, let's run this code and see what happens. Okay, so you can see users count, users allowed, is user allowed to add, is user allowed to delete. Yes, okay, so now let's see. If we have 100 of variables, we just need to write published like this, right? And this will get updated here as well. But let's use the latest of this, and let's remove this thing, and here let's remove this thing state instead of state object. And now let's remove these published things, right? Published, published, published. So we don't need this published and published, right? Now let's run this. Okay, let's see what happens. Okay, so same thing is happening here. So observable, here we removed the observable object and added a macro here, observable. And here we didn't need to write published here all the times. And here also state instead of state object. So the code is much optimized, right? Now what about if we don't? So let me tell you another thing is, previously we included published variable, but here by default all the variables are published, right? So what should you do if you don't want to make a variable published? So for that thing, let's make like var user count integer, return user count. So what about if we don't want to make published here? Or let's say user count or friends count, something friends count, and it can be integer, and let's set 0, right? So it's also becoming published, but if we want to make this ignorable, let's make it observe ignored r. Okay, so if you don't want to make a field published, you need to make this ignorable field by this macro. Okay, okay, same thing is happening. Okay, so let's see what changes we did. We changes here from observable object to observable macro, and here instead of writing published, 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 we didn't include there, and here we wrote observation ignored to avoid published variable, and here instead of state object we wrote just state var, right? So this is much optimized. Let me know your comments and don't forget to subscribe my channel. Thank you very much.